This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
GSMC Sports Podcast presented by GSMC Podcast Network. My name is Chris Blades, and before I get started here today, I want to make sure I remind you guys, as always, if you haven't already, to subscribe to the podcast. Make sure you never miss an episode. Make sure you're always on top of when we drop our latest stuff. If you could please as well, give us a 5-star rating, write a sense of you. Very appreciated, very helpful to see what you guys like, what you guys dislike, the ways we can improve, all that fun stuff. And also, if you're on social media, we're on social media, so you can find us there. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We can talk, we can chat, we can debate, we can discuss. And finally, at least in a kind of sort of way, we have some live sports to talk about, to a degree. It's not any American sports, unfortunately, but the Korean Baseball League, Korean Baseball Organization, I should say, which is the highest ranking level of baseball in South Korea, was set to begin its season. Well, today for me, because I'm recording this on Tuesday night, but for you guys, when you guys hear this, will be yesterday. So it was set to begin its season on Tuesday, and making it one of the first professional leagues to restart. And because they were so kind of us, or I guess ESPN worked out some sort of deal, I'm not exactly sure how this came about, but it will be broadcast on ESPN2, I believe. Obviously the hours are going to be a little weird because it's in Korea, and obviously like the timing is like they're obviously way ahead of us. So with that, and the times and schedules are where I know like stuff's coming on at like I know the first game. Well, I guess whatever the first game was, I guess it was like 1:00 in the morning, like Tuesday. And so they came on 1:00 in the morning. They have one, I think, like they have games at like 5:00 or 5:30, I should say, in the morning, 8:00 in the morning, and it's like not sporadically throughout the day, but just like throughout the morning and through the afternoon. But yeah, it's just that there is finally, at the very least, something to watch in terms of live sports. So great for ESPN to finally be able to have something to show other than like 30 for 30s and like old documentaries and like old games or whatever. They finally have something live to show. And then I guess also it gives more of these sports shows that are still kind of have to exist, even in a world where there's little to no news. I guess the only really thing that it makes sense or could continue having was like NFL Live, because that was going to happen anyway. As the offseason, granted, they would have had like rookie mini camps or whatever, start off some offseason workout programs this weekend, or I guess not this weekend, this week. But it wasn't any of that. But like for all intents and purposes, it was gonna be not that much different than it was now. There wasn't gonna be a whole lot more news. There wasn't gonna be a whole lot more going on. Obviously, for like the NBA, like the like shows like The Jump or like Get Up or like First Take, different things like that. Like obviously, there's less stuff to talk about now because that a lot of stuff is going to be dominated by basketball talk, getting ready for the play. Well, not getting ready, being in the midst of the playoffs now. And so you kind of are missing that. But at the very least, you now have Korean baseball. I mean, granted, I don't think everyone's going to be like not everyone's going to be tuned in or everything completely. In terms of like, again, because since the times are all off, unless you're in like, I guess it's more convenient for you if you're like in the West Coast, but if you're one of the unfortunate people that got laid off of their job, because then, like I said, there's games during the day, like in the afternoon, so if you don't have to work, you can watch them. But then again, it's Korean baseball, so I don't know how many people are really that into it. They might be getting into it now, but like I said, we're here. So, for more specific guidelines, like I said, the deal is reached between ESPN and the Korean Baseball Organization that will allow the network to broadcast 6 games per week from the KBO. Those broadcasts will, like I said, begin Tuesday, and ESPN will also broadcast the KBO playoffs as well as its Best of 7 championship. So, again, more content for them. ESPN personalities including Carl Ravitch, Jessica Mendoza, Eduardo Perez, Bug Schiabi, and Kyle Peterson will call the games from their home studios. And I guess there's a breakdown of how the first week of games will go. So like I said, there's Tuesday, there's Wednesday at 5:30, Thursday at 5:30. So I guess to take that back, maybe the stuff during the week, during the day that I was seeing like on the guide for potential games, we just like maybe it's just repeats of games. Which, I mean, hey, in fairness to ESPN, you got to fill the time with something. Like I said, Thursday at 5:30, Friday at 5:30, Saturday at 4 a.m. and Sunday at 1 a.m. And I guess it'll be breaking down, like different people will be calling different games. The KBO was hoping to get in a full 144-game season, despite games starting 6 weeks later than usual. The MLB will be watching as well as many other sports to see like how it works, and if it gives them a pillar of hope, and which we'll get to in a second. The KBO will take place with no fans in the stadium, obviously. Umpires will wear masks, which I guess they normally do, but I guess maybe different kind of masks. And players will have their temperature taken before they enter the stadium. The KBO operates a little bit differently than the MLB. There are only 10 teams, and the playoff structure is different. On top of that, you can expect to see plenty of offense. The KBO batting average was .267 in 2019. The number in the MLB was .252, and maybe the most exciting part of this, when the thing that excites me the most, outside of me having to finally pick a team, is that they're known for their bat flips. Now, I am a person that loves to watch a great bat flip. I know I'm not alone out there, but I know there's a bunch of whether MLB players or fans that are trying to rules of the game, people blah blah blah. Like, not that you can't have fun, but like do it in a respectful manner, like have some respect for the game or whatever. However that works. I am a person that, look, if you don't want people flipping their bat after home runs, then don't give up a pitch that could get hit for a home run. It seems like a very simple concept to me. And also, hitting a baseball, as a person who played baseball growing up through high school, granted, like I said, it's not that high of a level, but I understand how difficult it actually is to hit a baseball, especially, and like I said, the higher you get, the more difficult it gets, because the guys are throwing faster, their command's better, their off-speed pitches are better. All that stuff is improved as you go up levels. So if it was hard enough doing it at the high school level, not that I was that bad at it, but just again, it's not an easy thing. Very few players hit 400 or 500 in high school, unless you're those are the players you're talking about going number one overall. And my team had none of those guys. Though we have one guy in the Astros farm system. Shout out to Belak. But yeah, most of the other guys one other guy went to a D1 college, and a couple other guys went to smaller colleges. But yeah, our team wasn't that great. So it's not we had all these great hitters. So it was just an example of the fact that it's hard to hit a baseball is my main point. So, like I said, when you do it, you should be able to exude that excitement. And like I said, in the Korean baseball, I guess maybe it was this league, but the Korean Baseball Organization and just baseball overseas is known for their bat flips. So it provide some exciting celebrations. So I know with that, I do need to learn more about Korean baseball. I got to pick my team, see who I'm going to follow, same way I did with the XFL. Like I said, you got to just see what players do you recognize any of these players? Do I know any of these players? Do these teams have cool uniforms, or cool mascots, or whatever? I know they all have funny mascots. So then, yeah, just whatever helps you be able to pick your team to follow. Though I guess in fairness, most of us will just be following to follow because, like I said, not really a whole lot going on. But, hey, like I said, at least it's better than nothing. At the very least. It is better than nothing. So, yes, just if I were you and you're a sport fanatic and want something to be able to keep your interest, it might be worth reading up on the Korean baseball organization, like I said. Finding a player you may like, picking a team, and just, like I said, just at least giving yourself an outlet to watch something. It's not NBA playoffs, it's not the MLB, it's not the NHL playoffs, it's not the NFL, but it is better than nothing. So, like I said, you gotta, at this point, beggars can't really be choosers. We gotta, live with whatever live sport we can get. And, like I said, Korean baseball, there are worse things in terms of excitement that we could be getting. But outside of that, this league should provide, like I said, not only a glimmer of hope, but also kind of like a baseline or guideline of like how things could/would work if and when like sports start back up again. Because obviously, I do believe they're going to be without fans, so that's already one part of it. But then, like I said, they're coming to the stadium, you're taking your temperature every day for the games. Is that something that teams like sports like the NBA or the MLB or NHL, MLS, NFL, are they going to be willing to do that? Do the same thing, like maybe, I'm assuming they got to do similar things when you go to practice. Like interviewing everybody, making sure, like I said, the umpires or the referees are outfitted with the proper mask or whatever to make sure they're not spreading anything if they happen to have it. Just like I said, just like it can give you just a nice guideline of what it would look like and how you should be able to handle it, assuming they handle it successfully. Now, if it happens and then in like a couple weeks somebody catches it and they have to shut the whole league down, then then that'll probably be a downer because it'll just be another example of what could happen when the leagues start back up. Like I've been saying, it's just with no cure out there, it's going to be nearly impossible for no one in your league, no matter what league it is, to catch it at some point. Once it starts back up, and it's like when that happens, what do you do? Do you go the NBA route where you shut the whole league down? Do you go like a route where you like just quarantine them specifically, and maybe the people around them, or maybe that team? Like how does like I said, it's interesting to see and how it will play out, just how it all works. So then, that'll be another good case study in case you obviously don't want it to happen, but if somebody in the KBO does catch the Rona, what does the league do? Or how do they handle it? Because like I said, how they handle it, that could be what to do or potentially what not to do. So, like I said, I imagine all sports leagues, commissioners, owners, executives, players maybe even are going to be keeping an eye on the KBO. Just like I said, it gives you hope that if we do what we have to do here as Americans, which, I mean, our freedoms are different over here than they are in other parts of the world, so that's why we've had these protests against it, and people are like petitioning to open stuff back up, and stuff is being opened back up. Whether it's the right or the wrong time, I guess we'll find out soon enough, maybe in a couple weeks, once we see if the numbers spike up again, or if it kind of stays the same, or if it even drops off. Which, I mean, that's obviously what you would want, but doesn't sound like that's what's going to happen. But yeah, you never know. No one really has a whole idea of what's going to happen with this disease. But yeah, so the main point is that with that, it just, like I said, just gives you something to strive for. Just be like, hey, look, if we do this, we can get here as well. That's all we want. Because at the end of the day, most of us just want to be able to get back to watching sports. Like, the players want to go back to playing sports. Coaches want to get back to coaching sports. The owners want to get back to making money. All that stuff. And like I said, it starts with us as citizens and the American people doing what we have to do in the quarantine, and then obviously once things open back up, taking the proper precautions in order to make sure that it doesn't spread. I mean, it's going to spread, but like it doesn't there's not like a huge spike in numbers. Because then if that happens, then we're going to go back, everything's going to shut back down, maybe even for longer, and then who knows when we'll be able to do anything at all. So, like I said, if you don't want that, then if we're allowed back outside, there's no way to stop it, because again, there's no cure, but at least take the proper guidelines. But yeah, so I thought it was cool. And like I said, shout out to ESPN for brokering this deal. Then I guess, I mean, hey, in fairness, if you're the only sports league on, might as well get more viewers, as many viewers as you can. I'm not sure how popular it's going to be over here because, again, like I said, the timing's off of when the games will be played over there just as opposed to when they can be watched in the different time zones in America. But like I said, it seems like they're going to be replaying them throughout the day. So at least you'll have time to hopefully catch them at some point. But yeah, cool for them. Cool for ESPN for giving us something new. And like I said, at the end of the day, we really can't be too picky at this point. We've been going through and rewatching a bunch of old games. I know they were replaying, I think it was the Fail Mary game, I think, on Tuesday. I also saw on NFL Network they were replaying like a Detroit. And I think this might have been the Detroit game where they kind of got shafted with a couple phantom hands to the face penalties on Monday night game against the Packers earlier this season. That obviously the Packers ended up winning, but I remember there was a debate on whether the Packers should have won that game, but it is what it is. But yeah, so like that's what we've been. That's all we've had is just old games, and now at least this is something new, something fresh, something where you don't know the outcome before the game starts. So yeah, like I said, better than nothing. So we'll see how that goes, and once I begin to learn more and begin to watch more and begin to like pick and choose what team I want to root for and what players I want to root for, we'll check back in with this because, like I said, it's really all we got. So this won't be the last time we talk about the KBO, at least not for me, on this podcast. But yeah, so after this break, we're going to come back and we're going to switch gears to a sport that is hoping to come back eventually in the NBA, and a player that may be coming back once that season starts back up again that hadn't been playing before. So we're going to talk about him, talk about what kind of impact he could have if they choose to play him, talk about the team, what kind of impact he'd have on the team, how it could affect the league as a whole. All that fun stuff we will discuss right after this break, so stay right there.
You really can't underestimate the importance of having the right creative work for your brand or your product. Whether it's a logo, a website, a book cover, or an ad campaign, you really need a quality design to make that big difference pop and deliver your overall engagement and success in a competitive market. That's where Design Crowd comes in. Design Crowd has over 750,000 designers from Sydney to San Francisco ready to help you with awesome creative ideas. They make crowdsourcing work for you. So if you need a logo or you're working on your creative branding, you can go to designcrowd.com and post a brief describing the design you need. And then within about 2 to 7 days, you'll receive up to over 100 different designs from designers around the world. Then you pick the best design and approve payment to the designer. So you're only paying for the design that you want. It takes a lot of the guesswork out of freelancing and out of crowdsourcing. And you don't have to be a huge company like Harvard Business School to use Design Crowd, although they have used it as well. You can start a project on Design Crowd for as little as $99. And if you go right now to designcrowd.com/health and wellness or enter the promo code health and wellness on their website, then our health and wellness listeners will receive up to $150 off of your design project. That's designcrowd.com/health and wellness or entering that promo code health and wellness.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines. They got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
back here again on GSMC Sports Podcast presented by GSMC Podcast Network. So, the NBA is obviously hoping that the KBO works out so that they at least have a guideline or a baseline to base their season off of whenever it gets started, though. Different circumstances. The KBO started their season. The NBA was in the middle of their season before they had to shut it down, or I guess near the end of their season. Regardless, before they had to shut it down. So again, you're not starting fresh, you're starting in the middle. But the NBA seems at least is going to try in some way, shape, or form to finish out the season, get a championship. However that happens, it happens. Or they're going to try to figure out a way. But I mean, for at least one team, that could mean the addition of some key players. So, if as anybody that's been following the NBA knows, Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving signed with the Nets in the offseason. Well, I guess technically Kevin Durant was signed and traded, but regardless, they both came to Brooklyn. Now, before that happened, KD tore his Achilles, playing in the finals against the Raptors. In my opinion, shouldn't have been out there, but it is what it is. You live and you learn, I guess. But yeah, so then he was out the whole season. But now the season's been postponed, there's at least a discussion around will he, or can he, or should he come back and return. And I know the Nets GM, Sean Marks, kind of commented on it earlier, I guess it was earlier today, or no, this was on Saturday. He talked about it. Take that back. With the article, or they were discussing it earlier today. So, Marks was talking to New Zealand. Sean Marks from New Zealand, so he was back talking to a native New Zealand reporter or a news outlet, and he remarked that that's the $110 million question, because obviously that's the contract. In all seriousness, we tried to not talk about his timeline a lot. He said about Durant, he knows his body better than anybody. Our performance team and training staff have done a tremendous job getting him to this point, but I just don't know how coming out of this pandemic will affect anybody, let alone Kevin. Durant's longtime business partner, Rich Kleiman, had opened the door to a late summer return by telling the Washington Post at the end of February that it was definitely a possibility that Durant would play in the Tokyo Olympics. The games had been scheduled to start in July, but again, obviously they were postponed. However, Kleiman also told ESPN's Golic and Wingo shortly after the NBA season suspended the season in mid-March that hopes of Durant playing in June or July were not very likely. He followed it up with an appearance on the Michael Kay Show on April 30th, on which he said his assumption is no, that KD will play this season. He also tested positive for COVID-19, so I guess we'll have to see how that, if and how that affects him. But obviously we know the NBA has no timetable of when it's going to come back or how it would come back or what have you. And the Nets currently are in the 7th seed at 30 and 34, despite obviously KD not playing and then Kyrie only playing 20 games. And Sean Marks also mentioned that they've got a lot invested in a player like Kevin. We're not going to push him to come back. When the timing's right, he'll be 100% when he gets on the court. I can tell you this, though. Before the pandemic, he looked like Kevin Durant, and that's a good thing. Because, obviously he would know that. And then also there were some clips of him at practice or doing different shoot-arounds or doing different workouts or whatever that hit the Twitter timeline. And he looked to be moving good. Now, granted, practice looking good and game looking good are two completely different things. So that's fair to say whether or not he would be ready to play in a game right now. But, I mean, in about a month or so, it will be be pretty close to a full calendar year not only since he tore his Achilles, but also since he had the surgery. So again, that's not to say that that automatically means, we should be good to go, blah, blah, blah. Everybody heals differently, everybody reacts to surgeries and reacts to different treatments and everything differently. So just because the timetable for such and such person is this amount of time does not mean it's going to be the exact same for somebody else. But at the very least, he will be well removed from the surgery. It's not like he had the surgery sometime during this season and we're talking about getting him back just as the season getting pushed back. No, we had it last year. So this is a fair conversation to have. Now, do I think he's going to come back? Probably not. Just because, well, I guess it would depend. I think he would only come back if two things happened. If, one, somehow Kyrie was good to go, and I don't think that's going to be the case. So, I mean, you have to get pushed back really far in order for that to be the case, and I don't think that'll happen. Or they do it where they don't go right into the playoffs. Because I don't feel like it's good for Kevin or good for the Nets as a whole for him to be out there in the first game he playing being game one of whatever playoff series against, like, I guess, like the Raptors or somebody. That doesn't, like, that's not fair to him. It's not fair to the team. They haven't played. If they start back up, and like I said, if they start back up right at the playoffs, don't really do. I mean, they have the practices and stuff, but they don't like have any like warm up games before then. So then it will be well over 3, 4, maybe even 5 months before they played a game together as a team. So, like I said, having a player as good as Kevin Durant in theory makes things easier, but also, like I said, it's a big presence. It's a big, not necessarily personality, but it's a big player to get back onto your team. And just like you don't really know how he'll be integrated in, how to all work. So you want to get a few games to tune that up before you get into the playoffs. But like I said, if you throw him out there in game one, I don't know what that really does for anybody as a whole. Because if things don't go well, then I bet you're playing 4 games, and it's like, did you really bring KD back to play 4 games? Like, was that necessary? But like I said, if they decide to like do a little like tournament or like do some like finish out the regular season before or whatever, then it's alright, then I think the decision is a little bit more reasonable to be like, hey, if you want to play, then I think that's going to be the big thing. Just like, how does he feel? Because again, you can, as a doctor, as like a medical person, or like an executive or a coach or wherever, you can think this person's ready to go, but unless they feel ready to go, like you can't make anybody be ready to go, if that makes sense. Just because like the stuff checks out, like it's been they've done this amount of rehab, they've done that or this thing or whatever. Just because they've gone through all it does not necessarily mean that they physically feel ready to be back in that position. So I think that's where they're going to have to kind of decide how that's going to work. Just because, like I said, it doesn't seem fair to him or fair to the team just throwing back out there in the first game be a playoff game. But at the very least, at this point, it's at least a discussion because, like I said, no one, well, at least maybe people could have predicted this like December or January, but when the season started in October, no one could have expected a pandemic to shut down the season. Like, there's no way that was on anyone's list of possible things to have happen. But I said it's here now. It's happened. It's a thing. And with that again just gives a possibility. Because I wholeheartedly believe that at no point was he ever going to come back this season. Even if they would have somehow made a magic run to the finals, like whatever, he wasn't going to come back. I don't think. Because again, because then if he doesn't play the whole regular season, he comes back in the playoffs. That doesn't seem that doesn't seem right to him or right to the team or whatever. Because if they've gotten that far, then not to say they don't need him, but they could definitely be all right without him per se. So it wouldn't make any sense to me to do that. But that's, like I said, that's just me. I don't know what their decision was, but like I said, due to the fact that now that timetable is now off, and we don't know when it's going to come back, and it could be June. I mean, I guess it's not going to be June. It could be like July, August before the season starts back up again. That's like I said, it's past the year mark. In my opinion, it's past not in my opinion. That's actually physically past the year mark of when you would have had the surgery. So. And I said it's at least a possibility, to say the least. But you never know. But then also, I think the interesting part of it was that, along with what Rich Kleiman said, I know Brian Warner's mentioned this on the Jump earlier today, was that his name was preliminary in the conversation to be on the Olympic team. So that, not to say that he was going to do it, but if he wasn't going to take his name off, because he could have just been like, nah, I'm not doing it. But if he at least mentioned that, like, it's as a possibility, then that means he thought he was going to be ready to play some form of organized basketball in July, August. Now, playing Olympic basketball with 10 or 11 of the best players in the world against teams that you're most likely more talented than, not necessarily better, but more talented than, generally. Completely different than coming back and playing in a tightly contested and pressure-packed playoff series. And as your first games with a new team, you're trying to show off, you're trying to make sure that the money that they paid you and the acquisition was worth it. You're trying to make a good impression on your team, you're trying to make a good impression on the new fan, trying to make a good impression on the league, to be like, hey, like, I'm still Kevin Durant, like, I'm not anything different than I was before I was injured. So I'm saying that's different than showing up on a world stage. Like I said, you don't have to start. Like, you could just come off the bench. You could play like 10 minutes a game, something like that. It's not that serious. The team probably will be fine without you. But obviously, again, it's cool to have you, kind of thing, if that's what he wanted to do. So I'm saying the fact that he at least was willing to, in theory, do that, not necessarily that he was going to, but at least in his head that was an option, that would seem like it's a good sign to be that he could be ready to do something in, like I said, July, August, whenever the NBA season were to start back up, if and when it does. But yeah, just like, it'll be interesting to see how long the longer this plays out, if that's a legitimate discussion the Nets end up having. I know they're having like talks about it now, but it was never really a thing that they thought could come up. Just like, do we bring KD back now? And like I said, it only really makes sense to me if there's a regular season or some sort of games before you get the playoffs started. Because they're in the playoffs right now. They're probably, I don't know, I guess I'd have to look up how far ahead they were from like the 8 and like 9, 10 seeds or whatever. They were probably going to make the playoffs. But like I said, it's not right. It's not fair to him. It's not fair to the team to just throw him back in there for a playoff game with all the money that they have invested in him, and then risk. Like I said, the re-injury risk shouldn't be that serious. You would think a year removed, but hey, you never know. With these type of injuries, especially lower body, once you start having them, then kind of just like snowball, and just like keep on coming. But like I said, it'd just be interesting to monitor and just see if he says anything specifically, because obviously this is speculation at this point. If he either shuts it down or he amps it up even more. And then also, I guess we'll just have to, at the end of the day, really, we're just waiting to see if there's any basketball at all to look forward to in the coming months. Because obviously that's the biggest thing. If there's no season to come back to, then all this is a moot point. But if there is a season coming back, then that's when the discussion definitely ramps up. Because once you know that you will be able to, that they're going to do something. And like I said, I think they're going to try to play something. But try to get some of these games going in some way, shape, or form. But just you don't really know when. And I guess we'll see how the reopening of stuff goes. Because once that happens, and if the numbers stay pretty much the same or drop off, then you're probably good to go. At least in terms of like potentially getting sports back up. But if the numbers, like I said, in a couple of weeks they start spiking back up again, then, like I said, it might be a dub for sports for the foreseeable future. I mean, I say that as if we haven't already been without sports for like 2 months. At least in America, like I said. They're starting up the Korean League, and other leagues have tried to start back up, it just hasn't worked. But in America, it's been since like early March, once the NBA shut down, that we've been without sports. So it's unfortunate, but it is what it is at this point. So yeah, I just thought it was interesting that the conversation around Kevin Durant, and just if he decides to come back, if the Nets decide to bring him back, how it would all work and all this thing. But then, like I said, it's all predicated on actually having NBA games. So we got to get to that first. Baby steps here. We got to go take baby steps. Get the games first, then once we get the games are back, then all right, we can start talking. We can ramp these discussions back up once again. But yeah, so after this next break, we're going to come back here, and we're going to discuss an older NFL player that has signed a 1-year deal with a new team. And it's just interesting, because I think his best physical ability as an NFL running back has just been his longevity. It's not a skill that a lot of people talk about, but in a position like that, it's definitely an important skill to have. So And I guess as an NFL player, it's a very important skill to have. So we'll talk about that. Talk about, like I said, talk about the player, talk about the team, what he could bring to the team, his longevity, and just like how what's happening with him could impact other guys down the line. So we'll discuss all that right after this break. Stay right there.
You really can't underestimate the importance of having the right creative work for your brand or your product. Whether it's a logo, a website, a book cover, or an ad campaign, you really need a quality design to make that big difference pop and deliver your overall engagement and success in a competitive market. That's where Design Crowd comes in. Design Crowd has over 750,000 designers from Sydney to San Francisco, ready to help you with awesome creative ideas. They make crowdsourcing work for you. So if you need a logo or you're working on your creative branding, you can go to designcrowd.com and post a brief describing the design you need. And then within about 2 to 7 days, you'll receive up to over 100 different designs from designers around the world. Then you pick the best design and approve payment to the designer. So you're only paying for the design that you want. It takes a lot of the guesswork out of freelancing and out of crowdsourcing. And you don't have to be a huge company like Harvard Business School to use Design Crowd, although they have used it as well. You can start a project on Design Crowd for as little as $99. And if you go right now to designcrowd.com/health and wellness or enter the promo code health and wellness on their website, then our health and wellness listeners will receive up to $150 off of your design project. That's designcrowd.com/health and wellness or entering that promo code health and wellness.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Back here once again on the GSMC Sports Podcast presented by GSMC Podcast Network. So Frank Gore has seemed to find his way onto yet another NFL roster. He has signed a 1-year deal with the Jets for this upcoming season, assuming they have one. But yeah, so he's signing a 1-year deal with the Jets. The Gore, who turned 37, or will turn 37 in about a week, May 14th, is the third leading rusher in NFL history. He will be reunited with Coach Adam Gase, who coached Gore in Miami in 2018. Forgot about that. They also were together in 2008 in San Francisco when Gase was a very low-level assistant at the time. Excuse me. Gore's arrival adds another layer to the Jets' offense, and especially their running back situation. I mean, I don't know how much he necessarily will add on the field, but at least, I mean, he seems like a good guy. There's never really been any complaints about him, and I guess this is, how many years is this? Like his 16, 17 season? No one's really said anything bad about him. And now Gase had told ESPN just last week that they wanted to lessen Le'Veon Bell's role, who had 311 touches last season, 8th most in the NFL, and they were hoping to get younger at the running backs to create a real 1-2 punch. That's obviously not what you're getting with Gore, because, again, 37. But again, I guess maybe they just thought there would be a cool chance to add a veteran to the locker room, a guy that kind of understands Gase, knows Gase, maybe can help mediate the relationship between him and Bill, because obviously there were reports that they kind of had their own gripes or beefs or situations, and like I said, Gase has had nothing but good things to say about Gore, so maybe that'll help. Like I said, can help mend that a little bit. I don't know if that's a good reason to sign a player, but maybe I guess maybe they thought they needed some more veteran leadership, because like I said, this Jets team is pretty inexperienced, especially at the quarterback position. And also just around most of the team, the outside Bell, CJ Mosley, and a couple guys here and there. Most of these guys haven't really done much, won much, anything like that. So again, bringing in a guy that's been around in the league for a while can be a nice calming presence in the locker room. And again, how about Sam Darnold, who will be going into his third year? And Darnold mentioned in a video call on Tuesday that he's heard from a bunch of people that he's a great guy with a great work ethic. He's a really good leader, really good locker room guy, and obviously it looks like he can still play. Debatable, but we're thrilled to have him. I know Coach Gase has worked with him before, and he thinks highly of him as well. This will be Gore's 16th season. Okay, win trophy 16 or 17, and he played last year with the Bills, finishing with 599 yards and on 3.6 yards per carry, both career lows. He did, however, pass Barry Sanders on the career rushing list, ending the season with 15,347 yards, and trails only Emmitt Smith and Walter Payton. Despite his modest numbers, supposedly he was a very good mentor, or very good influence, I should say, on rookie Devin Singletary with the Bills, who trained with Gore in Florida before the season. And maybe he can have that similar impact. I know he drafted LaMichael Pirine. Maybe he can have a similar impact on him. Though I know from a Bills fan perspective, and a lot of them, or especially in definitely fantasy people too, were disappointed every time Frank Gore got the ball, because they could have been using Devin Singletary a little bit more, at least earlier in the season, when it was kind of obvious that Gore wasn't really going to give you that much on the ground. You would have thought it'd be better utilized. So again, from Devin Singletary's perspective, he's probably not necessarily happy, but he's not mad that Frank Gore is gone per se, because again, like I said, more touches for him. But yeah, just an interesting marriage there with the Jets. But yeah, I guess they need to do something with that backfield, because obviously Bell wasn't that great last year. Though you could argue part of that might have been him, part of that might have been the quarterback situation with Darnold catching the mono. Well, not the mono, but catching mono. And the offensive line not being that great, when obviously he was coming from a really good offensive line with the Steelers during most of his time there. So that was quite an adjustment, but even yet and still, the numbers don't look great. He rushed for only 789 yards and 3.2 yards per carry, the lowest in franchise history, for a minimum of 175 carries. And obviously, like I mentioned, him and Gase may have had their little rift, so maybe Gore can help, like I said, mediate that. He's on the second year of his deal, Bellows. They could potentially trade him. I don't really see that happening, especially, I don't think you trade him and make Frank Gore the guy. That doesn't seem like a smart front office move. Because he can't be the starter on offense. Your offense is not going to do anything. And then, like I said, you have Michael Pirine, but he's a rookie. Not that rookie running backs can't come in and have impact, but he's not like he was a first, second round pick. He was a little bit later in the draft, more of a mid round guy. So you don't really expect those guys to come in and be instant starters and excellent day one. You hope for it, but you don't expect it. So, like I said, I don't know if they can expect that from Frank Gore. From the Michael Pirine, if they were to do something with Le'Veon Bell. But yeah, so the main point I want to talk about Frank Gore was his skill of longevity. Gore, who has only been selected to 5 Pro Bowls, I shouldn't say only, but he's been selected to 5 Pro Bowls, and he's rushed for over 1,000 yards 9 times. And in his 15 of his seasons, he's had at least 500 rushing yards, which is the most in NFL history. The next guys are Emmitt Smith with 14, Walter Payton with 13, Mark Allen with 13, are all in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So there's an argument to be made about Frank Gore being in the NFL Hall of Fame, and a lot of that argument stems from his ability, I should say, of availability. I know a lot of people say, like, in a cliche kind of way, that your best ability is your availability. But there's no greater personification of that. That might be the right word. Or for that, than Frank Gore. Because then he's going to be a guy that is, like I said, currently third on the all-time rushing list. I'm trying to see how far is he back of... Oh, never mind. No, he's not going to catch Walter. He'd have to play 2 more seasons. Or rush for like 1,400 yards. And neither of those things are happening. So yeah, so he's probably going to finish third, and potentially, depending on how good of a season he has or how much he's utilized, have a decent lead on Barry Sanders, who is currently in 4th place, though I guess he's got AP on his tail, so we'll see about that. But yeah, so Frank Gore has been a guy who's, many could argue, and I think I have argued in the past on this podcast, that isn't really like that great in terms of like his skill level. Like, obviously he's had great seasons. He's had some success, mainly with the Niners, but he's had some success. But at what point in his career could you say that, like, oh, Frank Gore is the best running back in the league? How many times during his career did you say Frank Gore is a top 5 running back in the league? Very few. But due to his availability and him being around, he was able to accumulate yards and accumulate stats, and now there's at least a legitimate case for him being in the Hall of Fame. And I think that's a testament to him and a testament to the way he's taking care of his body, because, especially at the running back position, these guys don't last that long. A lot of these guys are out of the league by like early 30s. Maybe most of them, a good amount of them even before that. They kind of utilize you and use you up, especially nowadays, through your rookie contract. And they don't want to pay you. Someone else goes and pay you, and then you kind of just flame out. That's basically what the biggest example of this, is, at least in recent years, has been the DeMarco Murray. He was used up. They gave him all those carries, and run the rushing title with Dallas. They let him walk. Went to the Eagles. Didn't really have that great of a season, though. I mean, that was the last Chip Kelly year, so maybe that's the Chip Kelly thing. Got traded, went to the Titans, had like one decent season, and then like that was it. And he was like, let me check up when he was retired. But yeah, just like I said, it just shows the greatness of Frank Gore in a way that we normally don't look at guys like that. Normally we look at them like for their speed or their agility or their catching ability or their athleticism, stuff like that. But that's just not what Frank Gore was going to be. So yeah, he was out of his last year. Going back to DeMarco Murray real quick. His last season in the NFL was 2017, and that was at age 29. So yeah, out of the league by 30. A guy who, his last season in Dallas, had almost 1,900 yards and 13 touchdowns. Averaged 115.3 yards per game. And added in another 57 receptions. So yeah, 392 rushes, 57 receptions. Again, over 400 touches they gave him in his last season. Used them up, had a great season. Didn't work out for them. He lost in the playoffs, whatever. And then they just let him go. And like that was it. It was all basically they downhill from there. Like I said, he had the one good year in 2016 with the Titans. Had almost 1,300 yards and 9 touchdowns. But then the year after that had under 700 yards. And then he was out the league. So, like I'm saying, it's just, I know, when you look at Frank Gore, you're just like, and you're going to see his name on all-time lists, people are just going to be so confused. And I'm like, it's just, like I said, his best ability was his availability. And when you've seen guys like him, you can maybe, I don't know if it's going to change the way people view the running back position per se, because it's like, all right, again, not that he's like the greatest or he's been like that great the last few seasons. Like, he hasn't had a 1,000-yard season since 2016, and that happened with the Colts. But he did at age 33. And he had an almost 1,000-yard season the year after that, with 961 yards at 34. So I wonder if that's going to recalibrate or recalculate the way people think about the running back position. Because normally you think, all right, you get them on a rookie deal, once they're available for a big contract, you don't pay them, and then you just find another guy to replace it. Because if you have a good offensive line, running back is one of the easiest position to replace in the NFL. Because again, a lot of it, a so-so running back can be masked behind a good offensive line. If they open up holes, I mean, if you have enough vision, because again, unfortunately for Trent Richardson, he just couldn't read the holes right, and that's why he was out of the league so quick. But if you can at least read a hole, then you'll be fine behind a good offensive line. Doesn't really matter who you are. But yeah, so just like, does that recalibrate the way people think of running backs at all? If they can see a guy play until he's 37, AP's playing until, I guess, how old is Adrian Peterson? He is, let me look this up. He is currently, he is currently 35. Just in 35 in March. And again, he's still going. Maybe ever will be running back one for Washington next season. Just assuming like Geis isn't fully ready to go, or maybe they're just like too worried about him. I don't know. But yes, I'm saying there's just two guys that are going to be playing or have played well into their 30s. And AP, I think he had 1,000 yards last year. Oh no, he had 1,000 yards 2 years ago. That's what it was. No, I mean, in fairness, AP is one of the best running backs ever, so it's a little bit different. But again, these are situations of guys playing well into their 30s, and you've seen it with quarterbacks, you've seen it with other position guys that can play longer. But obviously, running back was a position that many people didn't think that was possible. But now you have two guys in the same generation that have been able to maintain their body, maintain a good enough skill level to where they can play well into their 30s at a position where many people, once you get past like 28, you're basically shot. So I just wonder if it'll affect people in the future. I know a lot of big running backs that got paid, like Zeke got paid, Christian McCaffrey just got paid, but Derrick Henry's still out there on the franchise tag. Leonard Fournette didn't get his fifth-year option picked up. So again, those two are different running backs than McCaffrey and Zeke. Kamara's still trying to get a deal. So I'm curious to see if there will be a switch in the way people view the running back position, or if you're just going to stay the same way, like, hey, look, keep them while they're cheap, and once they get too expensive, just let them go. Or you overpay for them, and then you don't really reap any of the benefits from it, because, like, obviously one season, but they paid Zeke, and then they got them an 8-8 season, even though he was still good. So it's like, is it really worth it at the end of the day? So yeah, it's an interesting thing. Like I said, it's an interesting thing to kind of examine and look at, and just kind of marvel at that a guy who's not necessarily great at one thing, other than being able to stick around. And there's a skill in that in of itself to be a guy that's great in the locker room, also good enough on the field to be able to keep getting jobs. Because if you were terrible on the field, I don't care how good he was in the locker room. You're not like a backup quarterback. No one's bringing in a 35-year-old running back just because he's good in the locker room per se. No, they might, but like I said, being a good guy in the locker room and being a good enough player can keep you around. So salute to Frank Gore for that, because many would argue he wasn't that great a running back, but hey, a lot of running backs that were better than him maybe in his career didn't play till 37. So like I said, there's something to that. Just being able to just be out there and keep your body right in order to maintain. And also maybe he'll turn into a trainer and like teach running backs how to stay healthy. Because I mean, again, not that he's like running like 4.3s out here or anything, but he's been able to maintain and play NFL football at the age of 36. That's not something most players at any position can do, let alone at the running back position. So, like I said, if worse comes to worse, he'll just be a personal trainer and help train running backs to be able to keep their body healthy for long periods of time. So, yeah, it'd be interesting to see. But yeah, like I said, salute to Frank Gore. And speaking of players trying to keep their bodies healthy, Coach Thibs, Tom Thibodeau, is available out here. He's searching for jobs, and apparently there's at least 2 to 3 teams that are looking into his services. So we will discuss those teams, discuss where he would best fit or where he could potentially end up. Obviously, there's no rush on these things because the NBA season's not over yet. But hey, it's just an interesting thing to talk about at this time, so I thought I would. So yeah, we'll discuss that right after this break. Stay right there.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red-hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's gsmcpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
Back here once again with the GSMC Sports Podcast presented by GSMC Podcast Network. So, good old Thibs. This is from the New York Post, this article, but Tom Thibodeau has quarantined in Connecticut, unclear on his next move, just like everyone else in the NBA, obviously, because no one really knows if and when anything's going to happen. But since being ousted in Minnesota amid his third season as coach/president, Thibodeau has attended various NBA and college practices. He has spent a lot of time embedded with the Clippers, Warriors, and Celtics, among others, trying to keep close to the game. And while Minnesota is still on the hook to pay him for next season, there are indications that he's itching to get back on the sideline in some capacity. Obviously, preferably a head coach for the 2020-2021 season. Okay, so I do remember this. The New York Post reported in February that Thibodeau would be on Leon Rose's shortlist and looked to be a favorite if the new team president chose not to bring back Mike Miller as head coach. I believe I talked about this then, but obviously, since the season ended, there hasn't really been any need to for anybody really to go through a whole full-on coaching search. You don't know if you're doing coaching search for this year or for next year. It's all kind of confusing. So once the season ends, maybe there'll be more of a search that is done with among many teams. But while his overall reputation may have taken a hit with the failure in bringing in Jimmy Butler to Minnesota and like how it all went down with the young guys, the Post was told by their sources that the Nets and Houston will have strong interest too. Houston's Mike D'Antoni will be a free agent next year. I remember that. It appears Thibodeau would have interest in all three jobs, but the Knicks would get first crack at the former assistant coach since they won't be competing in any potential playoffs, which is obviously an important caveat because it's the same thing like when NFL coaches, when you or when you're not in the playoffs, you can go about hiring a head coach sooner than like teams that are in the playoffs that end up moving on from their coach. Or like their office coordinator, defense coordinator, whoever. Like I said, you get first cracks, and there's something to getting that first crack because if you make a good impression, you can steal him away, if you will, from the other guys. You won't have to worry about anyone else getting an interview with him because you are already going to be on top of it. And I mean, the Nets probably will be short-lived, but the Rockets are expected to at least win their first round series, potentially make it to the second round. So, like I said, that's going to be a long time if he would want to wait on that job to be free. And maybe he just won't feel like doing that. So that is an important caveat. Plus, Thibodeau, along with obviously the Knicks getting first crack, Thibodeau is a creative arts agency client, has worked with Rose, and Rose knows his old school ways with players and likes that toughness, according to sources. Nets, not NBA stars, obviously NBA stars, but Nets stars Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving each like and respect Thibodeau, who coached them as a Team USA assistant, so that's important. Kevin's a basketball junkie. He loves him. One NBA source said familiar with the situation. Great players want to be coached, except the lazy ones. If you think the coach has a higher basketball IQ than if they think the coach has a higher basketball IQ than them, then they're all in. After his January 6, 2019 firing, Thibodeau faced claims he's too intense on young players and out of touch with millennials, unfamiliar with long, hard practices in the load management NBA era we are currently in. May be fair. If you're going to heap blame on Tom, you have to give him credit as well, said Brian Lee, Butler's agent. So often NBA teams play it safe and stay on the fence and don't want to be tied to actual results. Tom took a big risk that came with big results that ultimately proved to not be sustainable, but it's what was required at the time. Indeed, Thibodeau in his second year with the Bulls broke their 13-year playoff drought, got into the playoffs. He won 72% of his home games in the last 2 seasons and established multiple franchise records, including the highest offensive efficiency. But obviously he had issues with Karl-Anthony Towns and who the Knicks could target. I mean, the Knicks have been targeting people for like the last 10 years, and all they've gotten out of it is like Melo. So take that with a grain of salt. And Andrew Wiggins, he had clashes with him as well, and that obviously what led to his departure. Apparently, Towns said that his handling of young players was a disrespect and slap in the face to their development. Butler, meanwhile, like obviously didn't have those issues. Again, he had coached them before, but again, maybe some of the things that he thought about the young players, Thibs that is, Butler thought as well, and then that's why they had their issues and they ended up having to ship Butler out. And Thibodeau also took the fall in Minnesota as he had lobbied to bring in Butler and gave up Zach LaVine and the rights to lower marketing. Minnesota sources said Thibodeau was too obsessed with bringing in former Bulls players. I do remember he brought in Todd Gibson too, so that's like kind of the weird thing. But I think, and I mean, there's more stuff. Obviously, with him being a defensive coach and not really being an offensive guy, no team that he's ever had is ranked higher than 16th in the league in 3-pointers per game. Which I mean, with KD and Kyrie, that's not going to happen. You're gonna have a lot of 3-point shooting. But like I said, there's more in the article. You can read it. It's on New York Post. Just like Google Thibs and the Knicks. Like you'll be able to find it. But yeah, so long story short, with Thibs, I feel like the reason with Knicks, not so much. I understand like the allure of the job, but again, it's just putting him back in the position where he hasn't succeeded in before. Because his biggest issue is being able to connect, supposedly, at least. Again, I don't know. I wasn't in the locker room, so I don't know this for a fact. But reportedly, his biggest issue is connecting with the millennials. Now, and just his style of coaching being outdated for, like I said, the younger generation. Now, maybe his time away from the game and kind of watching different teams work has got him to update his philosophies. But we don't know that. We won't know that until the time comes for that to actually be put into practice. But if I'm the Knicks and I know that he's had a bad track record for younger with younger guys, and I'm a team full of that's going to be full of young guys, I know they have a lot of older guys and vet guys signed to like 1 or 2 year deals, but those aren't going to be the future. The future there is like RJ Barrett, it's Mitchell Robinson, maybe Alfred Payton and Frank Ntilikina, whoever they draft this year. So those are going to be the future of that team is only going to be the young guys, not the vets that you have. So if you can't connect to them, then that's going to be a problem. Or if they already know, like, they get reports from, like I said, from Cat, over from Andrew Wiggins, or from Levine, or whoever, being like, hey, yeah, this is how he does things, like, and then they already get a bad taste in their mouth before they even start, and then like they see that their worst fears are brought to light. Then it's just like I said, it's gonna be a whole just like the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. So if you've seen he's struggled and failed with younger players before and connecting to them, why would you put in that same situation again? It just doesn't make any sense to me if I'm the Knicks. Especially when I know, like, I mean, granted, maybe they think they'll be able to get, like, Giannis or, like, somebody in free agency, which maybe they can, but, again, they've been saying that for how long? And it hasn't happened yet. Eventually it's going to have to happen, but it hasn't happened yet. People thought it was going to be last year with KD and Kyrie, and they end up going to the Nets. So their biggest free agency signing was Julius Randle. Not that Julius Randle is a terrible player or anything, but again, KD, Kyrie, Julius Randle, pretty big, pretty sizable guy. But yes, that's kind of why I could see the allure of the Nets job and the Rockets job, though the Rockets thing is weird because that would be a complete shift. Going from all offense in D'Antoni to all defense in Thibodeau, especially with players like Russ and Harden. Not that they don't or won't give effort on the defensive end, but that's not their game. Their game is more known and it's more predicated on the offensive side of the ball. So it's like, how does that help with that? And then again, the Rockets are a team that shoots a lot of threes. So how does that marriage work? And granted, maybe it's mainly a D'Antoni thing, but it's just like that'd be a vast shift in philosophy to go from all offense to a lot of defense. Just that, like I said, just like that. I mean, granted, I do think D'Antoni's probably out of there, barring them winning a championship, which I don't think will happen. But yeah, you never know. If Russ is able to find a shot, that'll just only enhance the offense that much more from what it already was, which was very good once they got rid of Capella. Especially for Russ, it was very good for Russ. Just he had all the space to operate and everything. So I don't expect D'Antoni to be around, so I can see why you want that job. You have veteran guys there. You have guys that you know want to win. You guys that maybe will be able to deal with some of the old school mentality and ways that he has. If again, like I said, if he's still stuck to that. Then also, I know another big thing was the fact that he just kind of ran his starters into the ground, which probably wouldn't bother Russ as much because he just plays with a lot of energy, so it doesn't really affect him. But again, he's getting older, so maybe it does. But also that James Harden, like his style of play, has led to him, quote unquote, breaking down and having some poor performances in the playoffs. So now, if he's even more tired, because now instead of I had to actually take that back because it's not like he was playing it's not like he wasn't playing a lot of minutes with D'Antoni there. He was just obviously doing more offensively than he was defensively. But now if he has to do the same things or similar things offensively and stuff, and then has to give, again, not that he was giving no effort on defense, but giving more because that's what Thibs does, then like I said, by the time we get to the playoffs, his legs may be tired or whatever. Then all those step back threes don't hit like they did during the regular season. That's kind of been his problem before this. So I don't know if that'll help anything at all. So I don't know if the Rockets work. And I mean, for the Nets, I could see it just because, again, if you have experience coaching KD and Kyrie due to your time with Team USA, that helps. They'll at least respect you. And I mean, granted, KD will be coming off of a serious injury, so you don't want to run him into the ground. And that's not like he's not used to. Well, I guess maybe in Golden State he didn't have to play as much. They were beating teams by so much. But his Thunder years, he was playing a lot of minutes, both during the regular season and in the playoffs. Same with Kyrie. It's not like Kyrie is sitting out. But again, both those guys, and Kyrie for different things, not all leg, but he's had some injuries too. And if it's like I said, you saw guys, whether it was like D Rose or Luol Deng broke down early, or Joakim Noah broke down early, or I know Zach LaVine got hurt. Not necessarily that was based on the way in which Thibs ran things, but hey, you don't know. And obviously, D Rose never really able to get it back together after he tore his ACL. At least not with the Bulls. He's been fine other places, but not with the Bulls. So yeah, just maybe that whole play your starters 40+ minutes a game, run them hard in practice, do all this extra stuff. It's not really built for the NBA now, where you have guys that are going to need days off, are going to need, like I said, it's the new load management era of the NBA. And like I said, you need to adapt with the times, and if he's not going to do that, I don't know if a guys with the injury history of Kyrie and a guy like KD coming off of a serious injury, that's like the best kind of coach. But like I said, we don't know if Thibs has changed his ways. So if he changed his ways and he's more willing to adapt and to adjust and to try to connect with the younger guys and obviously relax off of some of his offense philosophy and also like his hard work philosophies, then maybe I feel like the Nets makes the most sense because, again, they have a more ready now team. I don't know if Thibs is going to be wanting to go through another one's rebuild just with how badly it went in Minnesota. If I'm him, I don't feel like doing that. And also, like I said, if I'm the Rockets, it just seems as long as Morey's still there, like, I don't see how they go that direction with Thibs today. Morey might not. Maybe Morey will be gone too with D'Antoni. So if he leaves, then who knows? But I feel like if I was going to pick out of those three teams, if I'm Thibs, I'm probably going to pick the Nets. Just again, due to they have the best player in KD, though. Again, we don't know how he's going to be after the injury, but they have the best player in KD. Not that James Harden and Russ are bad, but they're the best player of the three teams. And like I said, you have experience with them, though. I guess he would have experience with Russ and Harden, too, because they played on Team USA. But yeah, like I said, it's just like the whole philosophy change would just be a lot for me in Houston for that to make a whole lot of sense. Not to say it can't happen, but just be a complete, like I said, it's a complete 180, and that seems like a bit much. In terms of the Nets, they went from a guy that connected very well with the young players and was good with development, maybe wasn't good at the next level, to a guy that, like I said, that has been at that level and had good teams and had success in the league, and maybe can be the guy to help usher in the new era of the Nets. I think that would make sense. But again, maybe he doesn't get past the Knicks because, again, he's cool with Rose and they're going to get first cracks at him. So maybe this is all for now, and he'll end up with the Knicks. And then we'll pray for RJ Barrett's knees, if that happens. But yeah, I guess we'll kind of all see. Like I said, there's no rush on any of this stuff, seeing as no idea when the season's going to start back up. But yeah, it'd just be interesting to see if and whenever it does start back up. Like once it's over, how soon or how quickly Thibs is back in the NBA, because it seems like it's assuming he doesn't like bomb all the interviews. It seems like it's going to happen. Just like where's the real question at this point? So, well, like I said, we'll keep our eyes on that, and any sort of updates or anything we'll have, we'll make sure to discuss it here on the podcast. So make sure you always listen. But yeah, so after this next break, like I said, we'll come back and we'll discuss. So the one thing that we've really been looking forward to and been able to talk about has been the Last Dance documentary. And obviously, as you know, and as we all know, it's 10 parts. So they got a lot of people thinking of what other things could be 10-part documentaries, like what players, what stories, stuff like that could make for 10-part documentaries. So I'm going to come back and we're going to discuss that, the ones I think could, and also why, or maybe I feel like nothing's good enough for a 10-part documentary, and that 10 parts should be reserved for only the best of the best, and we shouldn't just be making 10-part documentaries about anything. So, as I said, you'll find out my opinion right after this break, so stay right there.
Are you looking to get your college football fix? Looking to get the latest news on your favorite school's team? The GSMC College Football Podcast is your ticket to all things college football. Join us as we talk college football from the national championship, the college rivalries, the bowl game, to the Heisman Trophy. To which conference is the best? We've got you covered for the Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, the Pac-12, ACC, and everything in between. Download the GSMC College Football Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
GSMC Podcast Network. So, as we all know, The Last Dance is taking place. Episodes 7 and 8 are going to go down this Sunday, so if you haven't caught up, don't know why, but if you haven't, no judgment. I would advise you to do so before, like I said, before this Sunday, and then obviously next week will be the last two episodes, 9 and 10. But I know I saw Monday, and I guess we'll touch on this as well. Some other new documentaries are going to be coming out from ESPN very soon. But I know one idea that was floated out there was that next ESPN the 30 for 30 people should do like a 10-part thing on like, I think it was like the 09 Yankees or whatever, and I was like, first off, there are very few baseball stories, if any at all, that people would be interested enough to watch a 10-part documentary on. And I think that's where people need to realize just how impressive you have to be in order to get a 10-part documentary. I was discussing this with my father earlier, and we were talking through a bunch of different like 30 for 30s that have happened and different athletes and things. And like really the only one that's been anywhere near this long as the Michael Jordan doc is the OJ one. And I mean, if you know the story of OJ, not the Jay-Z song, but like the I mean, the OJ story, I guess I should say, instead of the story of OJ. OJ's story, then you know, all right, you understand why this was made into a longer 30 for 30 and also was adapted for a TV show. Like a true crime, and I think it was American Crime. What was I forget if the People vs. OJ was the show or the doc. So let me do that. The People versus OJ Simpson was the American Crime Story season 1. I think they've done like they've done one on like Versace and like his murders, and like there's been another couple too. Let's see, yes or no. American Crime Story has done one on the People vs. O.J. Simpson, and they did one on Giovanni Versace. The largest failed manhunt in U.S. history. They've done a bunch of different things. But yeah, so the People versus O.J. Simpson was, you said it was 10 episodes, I think, wasn't it? It was 10 episodes. So, you could argue 10 parts. But yeah, and again, I forget if this was before or after the 30 for 30 came out. But yeah, it was just that, like I said, the OJ story, that's good enough. Like, there have been, even before then, there were stories and stuff about it. They were like, alright, we need to do a deep dive into this. And they did, and it was very thorough and it was very good. So, but again, with that, you needed to have the story worthy of that many parts. The 09 Yankees don't have a story worth that many parts. Most athletes don't have a story that's worth that many parts, and I think that's what people hopefully realize and hopefully understand, is that like 10-part documentaries aren't just going to grow on trees. I know they're doing doing 30 for 30 on the I think they're doing one on like Lance Armstrong coming up soon. They're doing one on called like Long Gone Summer, I believe is the title, on the 1998 home run chase between McGwire and Sosa, coming out in June. Which, quick aside, that's weird because a lot of people in baseball, writers or whoever that work for ESPN, won't vote for Barry Bonds to get into the Hall of Fame. But like ESPN as a company will do like a 30 for 30 on two guys that were like admittedly on steroids while this was happening. Not that it wasn't entertaining. That's why I'm not a big against steroids person, because I'm just like, hey, at least it made it more entertaining. Though I understand, like, if it's illegal, it's illegal. But like, if it wasn't, but it's illegal, so it is what it is. But yeah, so the ESPN will do that, but then again, like, people that work for ESPN won't even vote Barry Bonds in the Hall of Fame. It's kind of backwards. But yeah, so it's like, that's not worthy of 10 parts. Like I said, there are very few stories in sports that are worthy of 10 parts, and I hope people realize that. Like, this thing that we're getting with Michael Jordan is a one-time, maybe two-time thing. I mean, well, we kind of got it with OJ, so this may be the second time. But like, this doesn't just happen. You can't just make every story 10 parts. Like, not everybody has had enough happen in their career to be worthy of having this much footage, for one, being followed for an entire season. Very few people are doing that. Though, again, everything on social media now is a little bit different. There very few people would have been chosen to do that, A, and then B, to have enough backstory and different things that happen throughout their career to be worthy of filling up the 10 episodes. Because it's not like it's just 10 episodes on the 97-98 season. It's on, like, it's, from one intents and purposes, it's on Jordan, like, some of the supporting characters that were part of the run, like the Phils and the Rodmans and the Scotties, and like some of the opponents they went up against, like I said, the Bad Boy Pistons, the Knicks, Cavs. Like there are different characters involved here, and those stories need to be interesting as well. Or else, like I said, the doc doesn't work. It's about MJ, but it's not like just about MJ. You also kind of delve into some of these other characters. And so, like again, the surrounding pieces need to be good enough to be worthy to be told. And again, told in this time frame, because most the 30 are what one maybe 2 hours, like 1.5 hours, something around that. If you're lucky and you're like a Michael Vick who had an interesting enough story, mainly because he went to jail, which debatable if he should have, but we're not going to get into that. Just again, people kill humans and get less jail time than Vic got, so I'm just throwing that out there. But yeah, so so he was a guy that his playing career, both college and in the pros, warranted that. But also, again, the jail thing was a big part of his story. It's like you could get two separate, like really it was 4 parts. It was like 2 hours each, but it was on 2 separate weeks. Like you could get that from him. You could probably get that out of. I know they were talking about doing a documentary on Kobe's last season. It's different now because he's not here. R.I.P. Kobe. But obviously, again, like a lot of the commentary and stuff is aided, and there's Jordan can add a lot to the documentary himself, and obviously we won't have that with Kobe, so that'll make it difficult. But even if he were around, again, he's a smart guy. He can talk a lot. He can explain a lot of things. But I don't know if he's worthy of a 10-part doc. I don't know if LeBron will be worth a 10-part doc. One of the biggest, if not the biggest athlete in the world right now. I mean, he doesn't have enough going on. Like, he doesn't have the retirement. He doesn't have like some of the gambling scandals, the turmoil between him and Krause and that whole last dance thing. Like, he doesn't have that in his career. Obviously, he has a lot of great moments and memorable moments, and he's done some great things off the court. But I mean, what's the turmoil? The reason for this doc is because all the turmoil that was built up around that last season. And obviously, again, it allows you to highlight other things that happened. But that's the backdrop of this, just like everything they went through that season. Obviously, LeBron's gone through a lot in his career, but does he have that something that can create that backdrop where you're just going to do it on the case of his whole career? And if that's the case, I mean, it's going to be multiple parts, but it's not going to be 10. There's not enough stuff for 10 parts, and that's okay. That's fine. Like I said, I was discussing with my father. I think the two athletes currently that you could do a 10-part documentary on are probably Tiger Woods, because again, just his rise, his peak that was better than you could argue many people have ever been at any sport as a whole in the history of like the world when he was at the top, and just like how dominant he was compared to his peers. Then the drop off, obviously with the whole scandal and cheating on his wife and breaking the car window and like having to rehabilitate his image and all that stuff, and then like coming back from that, and obviously again just winning the Masters last year. So then boom, he's back up at the top, and then like again obviously and then even before that, just all the surgeries and injuries and stuff he went through in order to even get back in order to be able to play golf. Aside from the whole personal side of things, just be able to like physically be able to play golf again. Like I said, that's something, and then I guess also maybe some of his family stuff early on. That's something I would watch 10 parts on. I think you have enough material for 10 parts on if you wanted to do it. Though again, they're aided in the fact they have this 10 part by all the exclusive footage they have of that last season specifically. So that helps. And also, I guess the only other person, I should say persons or people that I would see is maybe like the Williams sisters, Venus and Serena. Just like how their dad prepared them for greatness as young people, and obviously the success that they've had both together and separately in their careers, and obviously the different things they've gone through in order to reach the heights that they've been to, and just how they've been able to stay there for quite a long period of time. Especially, I mean, specifically like Serena, obviously, but you'd be remiss to leave Venus out, so I wouldn't. So then those two, but I'm saying I want you all to think about different athletes, different sports stories that have happened over the last 20 years. Which one of them do you think is interesting enough to do 10 parts on? when you think about it, it's really not that many. Like I said, Michael Vick is one of the more interesting sports stories or sports careers of my lifetime at the very least, and he could only get 4 hours. And it was like, it wasn't like, wow, they left this out, they left that. No, it was like, all right, 4 hours is good. It would have been too much for 2 hours, but like 4 hours, like, all right, that seems like the right amount of time. Like Brady, like think of football players like Brady. No, like maybe if you do Brady and Belichick, but again, even that's a little dicey because Belichick doesn't really give that much. At least now, not to say that he won't in that kind of setting, but like generally speaking, doesn't really give that much. And I mean, Tom's not really like a big, elaborate speaker. So, how interesting will that be? And even then, like people don't want to see success. Like they've had cheating scandals and whatever. But I mean, they're kind of all been brushed aside at this point. People just remember the championships. Like the 30 for 30s are kind of interesting because it's not just a success story. There's like a rise and fall and bumps in the road in between. Like, I mean, what real bumps in the road have they had other than like the little scandals here and there that they've been able to overcome and then win through? Like the worst things happened to them is them losing after being 18-0 to start the season. Like, realistically. Like, all the other scandals or whatever, like the Spygate and the Deflategate and all that stuff, like, that was bad, but it's like, yeah, you could all come back from that kind of stuff. And they have come back from, like, people may not remember that in how many ever years. Like, it happened, but no, will people really care? Maybe not. So, yeah, it's just like, how many sports people can do 10 parts? I just want people to remember that. Like, what we're watching is a once, maybe twice in a lifetime kind of thing, where you have the athlete that was big enough and noteworthy enough and had a career illustrious enough to be able to discuss at length for this long. And that's completely fine. People need to realize that, like, 10-part documentary is a lot to sit down and watch. Like watching 10 hours on Michael Jordan and the Bulls and stuff is a lot. Honestly, again, I was not alive during the time, so it was a lot for me to learn. And I knew some of the stuff just from being a sports fan, but it was a lot for me to learn. But just like, as a total, sitting down 5 separate weeks for 2 hours at a time to watch the same person, not necessarily the same story, because they're adding to the story every week, but like, they're telling different things, but like the same general premise week after week after week is uncommon. Especially in terms of like documentaries for sports. Like mainly these 30 for 30s are usually like one-off. You maybe get like a 2-night thing. If you're lucky. Like most of these things aren't 3, 4, or 5 parts. Like I think like the OJ one was like I want to say it was like 4 or 5, and then like this one's, and in terms of like 4 or 5 like episodes. Or episode slots, I should say. And the Jordan one's like 4 or 5 episode slots, and technically it's like 10 parts, but it's like 5 2-hour blocks. I was saying I think the OD thing was something similar, but again, it made sense. So yeah, just like when you think about that and think like, oh, like what other stuff they could do. Like even Lance Armstrong, I think they're gonna do one on him. He's not, and he's been through a lot in terms of his career. Still not worth 10 parts. Not even close. No one cares that much. Not that people are gonna care about the story, but no one cares that much to watch 10 parts on it. I promise you. I can promise you that. It's going to be really awkward if you don't know the Future song. But if you do, shout out to you. You'll get that reference. But yeah, so just like it just got me thinking. I was like, what things would I want to watch a 10-part documentary on from the sports world perspective? And I was like, there's really not that many. Like I said, Tiger, Williams sisters, that really might be it. Like 10 parts, like no, and that's like I said, it's completely fine. We can reserve 10 parts for the stuff that deserves 10 parts. Don't try to force it. 09 Yankees thing, now you're just forcing. There's not a whole lot going on right now, but and nobody's trying to watch 10 hours on that Yankees team. I'm sorry. Good team, won World Series, all that fun stuff, but no one cares that much. Hey, it is what it is. I don't make the rules. I just follow them. But yeah, so yeah, I mean, like I said, I asked you guys to think about it, so you're more than welcome to reach out to us, put in a comment under the podcast, reach out to us on social media, tell us like what stories whether it's an athletic, like whether it's a specific athlete or a specific sports story or whatever, you think are good enough for, or have enough information for 10 parts. Because I don't, like I said, I don't really think it's that many. But maybe I'm missing something. Hey, I've been wrong before. I will probably be wrong again. So, hey, if you have an idea, reach out to us. I would be happy to hear it, and we all would be happy to hear it. But after this last break, we're going to come back and we're going to discuss something else I saw on Twitter. I saw this on Tuesday. And we're talking about the best number 5 in college football. I think it's mainly just like recently, because I was like, there's got to be some great number 5s from back in the day that I obviously wouldn't know too much about. But I think the picture that they tweeted out was all like recent guys. So I will base it on recent guys. It's like the last like 15, 20 years. So yeah. I'm going to talk about the greatest number 5, and I'll give my opinion on who it is, because I feel like it should be obvious. But not everybody feels the same way. So we will discuss it right after this break. Stay right there.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC, Invicta FC, Bellator, and one championship. We got the fights covered. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts. Past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
GSMC Podcast Network. So, the official Fox College Football account on Twitter tweeted out this picture around like 5 p.m. on Tuesday, and was like, who was the best player in college football history to wear number 5? And in that picture, I can't tell. I don't know exactly who this Miami running back is. I don't think it was McGahee or like Portis. Maybe it might have been one of those two. I'm not 100% certain. But it's like Donovan McNabb, Christian McCaffrey, LT, Pat White. Shout out to him. He was a god in the old NCAA games. If you know, you know. The NCAA football games, obviously. Jameis, Reggie Bush, Manti Te'o, whatever. I mean, should have been Darren McFadden on there somewhere, but I'll get past it. But yeah, so it just got me thinking, like, all right, who would I take? Now, I feel like I know who I would take, but that's just because he was one of, if not my favorite player to watch in college football during my childhood, so maybe I'm a bit biased, but we'll run through the stats just to be certain. So, first we'll go through LT, because I know he's a little bit older. So, LT had 2 solid seasons his first 2 years. Then his junior and his senior year. Junior year, he had almost 2,000 yards, a little under 2,000 yards, 20 touchdowns. And then his senior year, he came back with 21-58, 22 touchdowns. And he didn't really do much receiving, which is kind of crazy because he did a lot of receiving in the pros. But hey, to each his own. So he was an All-American his senior year, Doak Walker Award winner for like the best running back his senior year, and won the WAC Offensive Player of the Year both his junior and his senior season. He finished first in the NCAA in rushing yards in 2000, and was first in his conference in 1999. First in rush attempts in 2000 and 1999 in the WAC, and then in 2000 he was also first in the NCAA in terms of rushing attempts. Yards from scrimmage, he was first his senior year. Plays from scrimmage, he was first senior year. Touchdown responsibles for, he was first in the WAC both those years, and he was third in the NCAA respectively both of those years. So yeah, just like I said, a great all-around college player. Nothing to knock him for at all. He finished fourth in the NCAA voting. I mean, not NCAA, the Heisman voting that year. I'm trying to see single season college rushing leaders. I'm trying to see what the single season record. Oh wow, he wasn't even that close. Yeah, no, he's way down the list. I did not know Bryce Love had over 2,000 yards in 2017. I completely forgot about that. Wow. Let me see. Where is... Man, there have been a lot of people that ran for over... so his one was 21. So he's 10th all time. Which is not bad for a single season. Well, recently the only guy was Andre Williams at Boston College. What a name for the history books. Oh, so Melvin Gordon, because obviously the record is for Barry Sanders, he had over 2,600 yards, which is still absurd. Especially during that time, but even more so now. So the only guys after LT to do it were Andre Williams, Jonathan Taylor from Wisconsin, Derrick Henry, Rashard Penny, which is an interesting one, Kevin Smith of UCF, I forgot about him. That's another flash from the past. And then Melvin Gordon from Wisconsin, too. A couple of Wisconsin guys on there. But yeah, so I'm saying 10th most rushing yards all time in a season. Hard to argue with that. But my argument could be for guys like... I mean, obviously Jameis was great because he won like a Heisman Trophy and the national championship, but his thing was kind of short-lived. It didn't really last that long, in my opinion. So, in terms of guys outside of him, you have a guy like my boy Pat White, who kind of showed you what Oregon would look like before Oregon was Oregon. Now, I understand the passing yards and passing stats aren't really that great. The most touchdowns he ever threw for was 21, which was his senior season. And that's kind of why he didn't really make it in the pros. He wasn't that good of a passer. But, I guess, what was probably his best year? I can't believe he still went in the second round. So his highest Heisman voting was 2007, where he finished 6th. So 2007, he had only threw the ball about 200 times, completed 67% of his passes, so that's pretty good. For 17-24, 14 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, but on the ground added a whopping 13-35 and 14 touchdowns. He also had 12-19 and 18 touchdowns rushing as a sophomore, to go along with 13 touchdowns and 7 interceptions. So he was like I said, he was an NCAA football god. Him, I think he would have been there with was Tavon Austin? No, this was the, I'm trying to see which team this was. This was the, this was Steve Slayton, Noah Devine teams. Steve Slayton was nice too. Back in the day, him and Noah Devine were back. It was nice. But yeah, so Pat White kind of was the first quarterback, at least, to put West Virginia. I forgot the school for a second. Kind of put West Virginia on the map, and they've been kind of trying to catch up to that relevancy ever since. But he was the first guy to kind of, like I said, to kind of supplant that and also be like not the first dual threat quarterback, obviously, but as first of this new spread generation. I could argue. Again, I'm a little bit younger, so maybe there's older guys that may not remember. So I mentioned Braxton Miller too. He should not have been included at all. I mean, that is what it is. But Pat White, he went 4-0 in bowl games, 2-0 in BCS bowl games, which was great. Again, like I said, his passing numbers weren't great, but his rushing yards were amazing. From a quarterback's perspective, he kind of put the Big East on his back. Him and West Virginia kind of put the Big East on their back during that time period. And, like I said, kind of initiated the zone read offense into college, and then, again, it's just continued to been replicated since then. Like I said, they were running what Oregon runs now, or what Oregon ran on Chip Kelly before Oregon was doing it. They were kind of like the innovators, or the forefathers of it, if you will, and kind of made it a thing. And then obviously people are still doing it today. Look at guys like Lamar Jackson and other guys that have come through. They're doing a lot of those same concepts that West Virginia kind of popularized and made prominent in college football. People are it's not, I don't want to say stealing or copying, but it's just like, hey, you see something, you want to replicate it. And like I said, Pat White and in his time in West Virginia was kind of the pioneers, you could say, of that style of football. And like I said, they were great at it, and he was great. So he's another one on argument. I want to look up Darren McFadden's numbers too before I get to the guy who I think should be the guy. Once I get to that, to Darren McFadden, because his numbers at Arkansas were pretty good. Only lasted 3 years. Every year over 1,000 yards. His junior year, he had 1830 and 16 touchdowns. Sophomore year, at 1647 and 14 touchdowns. Didn't really do much receiving, which is kind of weird because he threw a couple passes. But him and Felix Jones together in that backfield, that Wildcat, or I guess you call it the Wild Boar at the time. Great, finished second in Heisman voting in 2006 and in 2007. Oh, Troy Smith, yikes, I forgot he won a Heisman. And then he lost to Tim Tebow. So again, two solid choices, to say the least. Hard to argue against either of those Heismans per se, especially at the time. Can't believe that. So the year, I remember I mentioned Kevin Smith a couple years ago from UCF, a couple minutes ago, I should say. The year he ran for 2,567 yards and 29 total touchdowns. He finished 8th in the Heisman voting. It's absurd. But he had to go up against Cole Brennan and like I said, Tebow and Chase Daniel at the time. So yeah, that's what it is. But yeah, so Dan McFadden, another great guy. Okay, like I said, ushered in the Wildcat, didn't really end up working. But he did it. But my guy, the guy who arguably the most electrifying player in the history of college football. One of my all-time great college football players. None other than Reggie Bush. I would argue he's the best number 5 ever. I mean, his junior year, on 200 carries, he had 1,740 yards, 8.7 yards per attempt, 16 touchdowns, also caught 37 balls for 478 yards and 2 more touchdowns. Let me see what he did. Had a punt return touchdown his senior year. Had over 4 return touchdowns during his career. Had over, so if you include that, had 4 at 30. He had over 42 total touchdowns, which isn't like that much for a running back. But again, he won a Heisman at the running back position, which is hard to do. Beat out Vince Young, even though, I guess I should take that back, because he had to give it back. He won a Heisman. I don't care what people say. He won it. If he had to give it back, he had to give it back, whatever. But beat out Vince Young, and beat out his own teammate Matt Leinart, beat out Brady Quinn, when you look at this list, name's looking very shaky. At the next level, but hey, it is what it is. This isn't pros, it's college. And I think, what was that? The one game, it was the Fresno State game, I believe, that season, where he had 500 yards of total offense, or 500 all-purpose yards, or something like that. Just absurd. I'm trying to find, let me make sure I can find the game. Yeah, I just remember him going down. I still remember, so it's Fresno State, late in the season. He ran 23 times for 294 yards, 2 touchdowns, had 68 yards receiving, and had 7 kick returns for 135 total yards, and a punt return for 16 yards, just for good measure. And just the week after that, he followed it up with 260 yards on the ground against UCLA. Again, one of the most electrifying players ever. I still remember the run he had where he kind of hit it was one of the first times I've ever seen somebody hit somebody with a back juke. He was running down the left sideline, kind of jukes back against Fresno State, so cuts across the field, runs to the end zone. I think this was late in the third quarter, kind of sealed the game off. But again, one of my favorite players ever to watch, so I'm probably a little bit biased. He doesn't have the accumulation of total stats. Is like I said, Darren McFadden's total stats are probably greater. not popular. They are greater, but he also split time in the backfield, so not necessarily his fault. And then also, like I said, they had Matt Leinart, who won the Heisman like the year before, I think. The year before he won it. And they won, 2 national championships during his time there? Lost in the championship game in the third one. I mean, great career. I don't care if he had to get the Heisman back. He still won it. You can that counts on his resume. Like I said, amazing. He was one of the first people I saw ever wear like the one white arm sleeves. I mean, in football at least, because obviously Allen Iverson had made it popular in basketball. But I remember I think it was in that game that his sleeve, or like his arm, like I guess he was wearing like Under Armour or Nike or whatever kind of arm sleeve under his shirt. I mean jersey, because it must have been a little chilly up there in Southern California. And it got like ripped off, so we were just like running with like one arm sleeve. And I thought it was like the coolest thing ever as a kid. And I remember I used to wear whenever I wore jerseys, I would wear them with only one sleeve down, like him and like Allen Iverson. So, like I said, maybe I'm just biased, but I would say that I put my money on Reggie Bush being the best number 5 in college football history. Because again, winning the Heisman, winning 2 national championships, making a third. They won 34 straight games or whatever it was. While during his time at USC, like I said, had a 500 total all-purpose yard performance. Not that Fresno State's that great, but it's still impressive. Like I said, just one of the guys when he got the ball in his hand. And I mean, there's a lot of guys that happens in college football, but like he was one. This is 2005, 2006. Like it wasn't really like. It's not like now when you see guys like when Lamar Jackson had the ball or a lot of other. Trying to think who else. I mean, even guys just like randomly this year, like Chuba Hubbard. Whenever you got the ball, you're like, oh, we could break this one for a touchdown. Like there's been a lot of guys that have been electrifying. Obviously, I still contend that Tim Tebow is the best player in college football history, at least in modern history. I can't, like I said, I've been going back and debating old stuff is hard to do. But I won 2 Heisman's, one as a sophomore, 1 national championship, 2 national championships, I should say, and introduced a jump pass to the game, and had the great "I promise" speech. Like it's like he's done a lot. But I mean, Reggie Bush is up there for me in terms of best college players I've ever seen. I mean, there's a reason why he went number 2 as a running back. Right, this was before people started devaluing the running back position, but still, he went number 2 overall, and it was legitimate case he should have went number 1 over Mario Williams that year to the Texans. And like people who knew, everyone were like, "Yeah, no, I completely get it. He is the best player in college football right now," and I get it. Like that was the most electrifying. He's also the best. Like very rarely do those two things marry. Like a lot of times, you might be the most electrifying, but you're not like the best. You're just like, all right, when the ball gets in your hand, you're great. It's like the same thing like Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson a couple years ago, he was the most electrifying and also the best. And arguably, again, it's hard to. I don't know if there's a defensive guy that was as good or whatever, but offensively, there was nobody that was better than him, in my opinion. So I'm saying it was like a cool marriage of that, like when an electrifying player can also be skilled enough to be called the best. And Reggie Bush was the first guy for that for me for my college football viewing. He was like, wow. Like every time he touched the ball, you thought he was going to score. Like that's legitimately, especially that junior year. It was like you were shocked that he wasn't breaking this run. Like if the run only went for like 20, 30 yards, you're like, how did that not break for a touchdown? And like I said, and he looked cool doing it. I feel like that adds to it. You gotta look good doing it. And I feel like that's just like in life as a whole. You gotta look, like I said, if you look good, or not just life, but if that's in sports, if the person looks good as they do it, like Mahomes looks great, but also like he has the arm sleeve and he does the other thing. Or like LT looked. I mean, was good, but also like the dark visor. Like you can, when you look good doing it, it like adds to it, in my opinion. I mean, that's not necessarily a football or like an on the field thing, but just like the visual of it makes it look good. That's why I'm saying that's like Allen Iverson. That's why so many people want to wear the arm sleeve, and people do still wear the arm sleeve to this day, is because Allen Iverson did it. It looked cool, and he was also good. So like, all right, if I want to be like Allen Iverson, I got to put the arm sleeve on. Stuff like that. You are more than welcome to debate this. Like I said, are definitely people that have a case, and definitely a warranted case, outside of Reggie Bush. But again, Reggie Bush gets my vote, personally. Just for a team success and also for his own individual success. Again, don't care, you have to give the Heisman back. He won it. You can't tell me he didn't. I don't care if they cross his name out on College Football Reference. It's his. I still can't believe he gave that back. They would have to come and take that out of my house, I promise you. But yeah, good for him. He's a good guy. But yeah, that'll do it for me here today on the GSMC Sports Podcast, presented by GSMC Podcast Network. I want to thank you guys, as always, for listening to me talk about sports and make random references throughout the podcast. If you haven't already, please make sure you subscribe to the podcast. Make sure you never miss an episode. Make sure you're always on top of when we drop our latest stuff. If you could, please as well, give us a 5-star rating. Or a nice review would be very appreciated, very helpful. It allows us to see what you guys like, if you guys dislike, the ways we can improve, all that fun stuff. And also, if you're on social media, we're on social media, so you can find us there: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We can talk, we can chat, we can debate, we can discuss. You can tell me who the best number 5 is in college football. If you don't think it's Reggie Bush, and like I said, that's fair. There are many people with a worthy case. You can tell me about what you're looking forward to most about the Korean baseball organization. Tell me if you think KD should come back and play, or maybe he shouldn't. I don't know. Everybody has their opinion. And also, like I said, tell me what sports stories or athletes you think would be worthy of a 10-part doc. Because I really think it's very few, and I think people are forgetting them. They kind of bring these things up. Like, 10 parts is there's a lot of food you got to cut out to make it 10 parts. Let alone the footage you leave in. Like, I think people are forgetting, like, what story would be worthy of that much footage? And there's not, like I said, there's not that many. There really isn't, but I'm more than welcome to hear what you guys think. So feel free to reach out to me. And before I get out of here today, I want to make sure, like I said, give my every episode shout out to the essential workers out there. So the nurses, doctors, grocery store workers, dollar store workers, whatever, all the people out there that still got to go to work and can't stay at home like the rest of us. Whether, like I said, so some of us, not myself luckily, but a lot of people are unemployed. So sorry for them too. And for the people that do have to go to work and are deemed essential, shout out to you. Again, you're doing what you can to keep us safe and keep me safe and keep everybody else safe. I know the protests might not show it, but again, a lot of people do appreciate the work that you're doing and the fact that you're putting your lives and the lives of the people that maybe live around you or live with you at risk in order to, like I said, take back this virus and hopefully be able so we can get through this and go back to something resembling normal life sooner rather than later. So shout out to you guys. But yeah, I've been Chris Blades. That has been my time. And until next time, peace out.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.